So hey guys, today we have Suyesh and he's having 2.5 year of experience in Java and Spring Boot. So let's get started. Hey, hi Suyesh, how are you?
Hello, Faizan. I'm good. What about you?
Yes, I'm also good. Shall we start?
Yeah, we can surely.
Okay. Can you please introduce yourself in brief and your recent projects?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I'm Suyesh Authe. I'm currently working
Mm-hmm.
in Virtusa as a software engineer.
Okay.
I have 2 years of experience
Mm-hmm.
in contributing the financial project. I have
Mm-hmm.
contributed in this to the Citibank in their investment domain. So there I have majorly worked on two projects. Con- uh, Actually working on currently. So the
Mm-hmm.
first one is global communication automation,
Okay.
and the another one is the Volcker, an error handling trade application. So the global
Okay.
communication automation is basically a microservice based architecture project.
Mm-hmm.
So we have around 7 to 8 services, and in Volcker, which is a error handling trade application, where I have
Mm-hmm.
basically worked on integrating SIDOL value integration.
So how your microservices are communicating with each other?
Yeah, they are communicating with the help of we are actually currently using native programming. We have
Okay.
used a web client to communicate to establish a communication between each microservices.
Web client.
Yeah, earlier it was
Okay.
on REST template. Then
Can
we
you
have
please brief on this? Like, what is this web client?
yeah. So as I mentioned, it comes in the reactive programming. So it is a
Uh-huh.
an asynchronous way of communicating between establishing a communication between two microservices. Uh,
Okay.
this communication is a non-blocking,
Uh-huh.
so we can have the communication established between two microservices
Mm-hmm.
asynchronously and in a non-blocking way.
Okay. Okay. So cannot our microservices communicate directly? Is my voice low?
It's good, pretty low, but I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. So cannot our microservices connect or communicate directly with the APIs?
Yeah, we
Or
can we
okay.
can we can establish a communication with the help of APIs as well.
Okay. Okay. Uh, okay. And as you said, you were working on error handling project also. So what were your basic approach to error handling, and what were the basic things that you were doing in error
Yeah.
handling?
So just to correct you, it's an error trade handling application, not an error handling application. Basically,
Error
we receive
trade.
yeah, we basically receives an error trade from the upstream, and
Okay, okay.
maps we process and maps those in our
Mm-hmm.
staging table. We keep the
Okay.
those in our staging table
Uh-huh.
and create an output table and send this to the downstream based on
Okay.
our mapping.
Okay, okay. Got it. Before moving on to the next question, do you know that we have designed a complete interview preparation package, structured step by step, containing 16 PDFs? So it's basically a one-stop solution to crack any interview. This
Okay.
package covers core Java, Spring Framework, Maven, Git, Spring Boot, scenario-based questions, Spring Security, Spring MVC, Spring Data JPA, microservices, Hibernate, General Java, coding questions, Stream API coding questions, and many more. The
Okay.
best part is that people have been telling me that they cracked their interviews with this material, and there is a 99% chance that interviewers will ask questions from this package. So after this interview, I will share a link with you to get this, and also I will add in the description of this video. So now moving to our questions. Okay.
Yes.
Can you tell me what's the purpose of Spring Boot application annotation?
Yeah. A Spring
Yeah.
Boot annotation. The purpose of annotation which we use in the Spring Boot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the annotations are basically used to define any class of a Spring Boot as a bean.
Okay.
Basically, when we are annotating, we have the generalized component. We have a generalized annotation named as component.
Mm-hmm.
So when we define any class as an with the help of at that component, IOC container basically finds it as a finds it as a bean. So it would basically create the bean of those and maintain the life cycle of those bean in that IOC container. So
Okay.
wherever the annotations will be there, the bean
Mm-hmm.
of those class will be created,
Okay.
and it will be stored in IOC container. Manage its so the Spring
Uh-huh.
IOC container will be responsible for managing the whole life cycle of that bean.
Okay, okay. So, okay. Uh, Moving ahead, uh, what are the components that makes up Spring Boot application annotation?
Yeah, the components, right?
Uh-huh.
Earlier to Spring Boot, we used to use have like we have it's basically a combination of component scan, which basically scans our whole Spring Boot application, the class path,
Okay.
and it also includes that configuration at the rate configuration, and as
Uh-huh.
well as enable auto configuration, which
Mm-hmm.
basically enables an auto configuration. Yeah, these are the three things, the three component.
Okay, okay. Okay, so if an application fails to start with an exception related to component scanning, so what adjustments might you make to the Spring Boot application annotations attribute?
Mm, if an application gets failed while
Uh,
scanning the an application, right, while
yes,
component scan,
yes, yes,
so
yes,
first I'll
yes.
check the approach, I guess. It's related to the proper structuring. It's related to the structuring of the project, right? I will check whether the exact class is actually present in those package which is getting
Mm-hmm.
scanned. I
Okay,
will check the exact class path if it is correct
okay,
or not.
okay. Uh, can we add some attribute in enable auto configuration, like exclude attribute, something like that?
Yeah, yeah, we can have those attribute as well. Let's say we know that
Uh-huh.
we have in that enable auto configuration, we want some of the configurations, or let's say we want to disable our Tomcat server,
Mm-hmm.
or any configuration which we don't want in get started when our application gets start, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So in that time we can include those attributes there in that exclude part.
Okay. Okay, so moving ahead, have you worked? Do you know what is a Spring Boot starter and like what are their purposes?
Yeah, a Spring Boot starter basically it's a dependency we used. So
Okay.
for basically creating the whole uh, a Spring Boot starter is basically consist of different dependencies, the combination of different dependencies which is responsible for starting our whole application.
Mm-hmm.
So if we are adding a Spring Boot starter web application, a web Spring Boot starter web dependency in
Mm-hmm.
our application,
Yes,
so
yes.
whatever the dependencies are required to create an application as a
Mm-hmm.
to start our web application will be
Mm-hmm.
included. Let's say we are having Spring Boot starter web, right? So it
Mm-hmm.
will it will have Spring Web MVC, Spring Web
All.
dependency, as well as Tomcat, or I guess say I would say the server will be added. Tomcat server will be the default server which will be added. So
Mm-hmm.
there are different dependencies which will be included in that Spring Boot starter
Okay.
web. Yeah.
Okay. So let's say your project needs to integrate a third-party library. How would you proceed to create a starter for this library?
Mm, so we wanted to include any another library, right? We will go basically
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
Maven
third-party
repository.
library.
Uh, we can we can go to the Maven repository and add those in our dependency, any library.
Okay.
Or yeah, and let's say there are some dependencies. Let's say we have Tomcat as our default server, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we don't want that, don't want Tomcat to be used as a default server. We want, let's say we want to use a Jetty. So
Mm-hmm.
what we will do is, in our in the structure of our dependency, we will basically exclude our
Mm-hmm.
Tomcat, and
Okay.
we'll add the dependency related to the Jetty, Spring Boot starter Jetty. So in a way,
Okay.
any dependencies
So
which you want.
this is you are disabling Tomcat, enabling Jetty server, right?
Yeah, basically a new dependency which has been added instead of,
Okay.
let's say, any extra. Let's, as you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to add any new dependency or third party dependency, we can get those dependencies from Maven repository, any of
Okay.
anything. So
Mm-hmm.
we can get the exact dependency with the version and the artifact and the group ID. We can add
Mm-hmm.
those in our if there is a version conflict, we can add those in the dependency management as well.
Okay. Okay, okay. Can you please tell me what is Spring Boot profile annotation at the rate profile?
Okay.
Yes.
So Spring Boot at the rate profile annotation is basically, let's say we want to we want to have we want to use our bean for the specific environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can specify this that specific environment and at the rate profile annotation. Let's
Mm-hmm.
say we want any bean to be loaded or configured only and in the production environment,
Mm-hmm.
or in the only lower environment like a dev or UAT. So
Okay.
at that time I can add that dev environment property, that dev environment in that, or the local host, let's say, we can in that we can add those in our at the rate profile annotation, basically defining the environment where we want to configure our specific bean, basically used
Okay.
in our configuration part.
Okay. So
Let's say
how
we
would
have
you
mhm.
create different environments like production environments, dev environments, testing environment?
So I can create those environment. You mean we have different application properties we basically create, and we basically specify the properties specific to those application to those environment in that
Mm-hmm.
application dot properties only. Let's say we basically in our project maintain three environment like dev, UAT, and prod. So
Mm-hmm.
and in each environment we have three region: apac,
Mm-hmm.
nam, and EMEA. So we basically defines the property as per our environment as per our region as well.
Okay. So Suyesh, how do you perform testing in your project? Can you tell me step by step?
So basically testing of our whole application, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Uh, mm,
Which testing you guys prefer? There are different types of testing, like integration testing, and other types as well. So yeah, please
mhm.
go ahead.
Yeah. So in our application, we basically performs. I'll start with the, let's say in our GC application, right?
Okay,
We have basically different services communicating with each other.
okay.
So in our testing, we basically first we check our application whether it's running properly, our specific
Mm-hmm.
service has started or not. If it has
Mm-hmm.
started, then before starting the testing, I would like to give an overview of our how exact project goes through, and
Okay,
and I can give you the answer directly as well. Okay, the
okay.
for the testing purpose, right? We basically performs the proper we have a different services communicate where we have integrated different
Mm-hmm.
external services. Let's say we
Okay.
have visibility services. So when we perform testing of a specific service named as a
Mm-hmm.
visibility service, so we check
Mm-hmm.
whether that visibility service has properly getting the response from the external service which we have implemented, right? Which we have
Yeah, yeah,
integrated.
yeah.
So in that case, wherever the integration of wherever we have external services which are integrating,
Mm-hmm.
we basically check whether the integration is working fine as with the help of
Mm-hmm.
integration testing.
Mm-hmm.
Then when we check our APIs, whatever the API which we are using with the help of API testing in our
Mm-hmm.
Postman. Then after everything is properly working, we basically deploy and test on a dev. We perform a
Okay,
sanity test. We perform a
okay,
sanity test of our whole end-to-end application.
okay.
And once the sanity test is performed, we basically give it to the
Testers.
performance testing team. First of all, they performs the performance testing, then the UAT,
Mm-hmm.
also to the UAT testing team. So basically they perform the end-to-end testing of
Okay,
application.
okay. So do you guys write JUnit test cases as well, right?
We basically did not have yet written those test cases yet. We
Okay,
are have now only started writing the JUnit test cases for our application. It was
okay,
till now it
okay.
was not there.
But do you know
Now
how
it's
to
learning.
write?
Yeah, I am learning now.
Okay, okay. So do you know about Mockito framework?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So like, why do we need this framework?
Basically, it's a testing, as you mentioned, right? It's a test. It's used for a testing purpose. So,
Mm-hmm.
so let's say we have our controller class, and it has a dependency on service class, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so basically, with the help of Mockito framework, we can mock the beans which are dependent, and
Okay.
we can basically
We
mock
can create fake
basically
data, right?
yeah basically create the fake data. We will
Mm-hmm.
not exactly calling to that service, we will only
Mm-hmm.
returning while writing the JUnit test, we will have the fake or dummy data which we will
Mm-hmm.
use for the testing purpose.
Okay. So do you know about sonar coverage and all these stuff?
In my current project, I have not worked on that, but I do
Okay.
have an understanding how what exactly
So
it is.
why sonar coverage is required? Like it depends. A few companies required 80% and some
Mm-hmm.
85. So why do we need this sonar coverage?
Yeah, sonar coverage is basically basically defines our the code coverage, or the how robust our application can be, or how good our application is,
Okay.
how many percentage of test is covered, so that basically it is responsible for making our application robust, and
Okay.
just to find the what I can say, the coverage of the whole code is
Mm-hmm.
good enough so that the application will not fail directly in the
Mm-hmm.
production environment or in the higher environment, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So basically we maintain the code quality. We can track of our code quality with this help with
Mm-hmm.
the help of sonar cube and sonar lint.
Okay. So what's a good percentage for sonar coverage?
It's around 80% if it is good.
80%.
Yeah,
Okay.
even in our
Uh,
application we have targeted of 80% only. If
okay,
it is
okay.
80% of whole class, it is good.
Mm. So do we have some disadvantages of Spring Boot test annotation or
Spring Boot.
limitation?
Uh, yeah, sometimes what happen is,
Mm-hmm.
uh, when we are doing a Maven install, or when we are trying to start our application, right? If
Mm-hmm.
we and we have not written the test cases, as I mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So it basically get fail with the help of test case failures. Application
Okay.
didn't start. So
Okay.
for in that case, what we have to do is we have to run the application by skipping those test cases. Let's say we
Mm-hmm.
use d skip test equal to true. So
Okay.
d skip test. So it will basically run. We will basically start the application by
Mm-hmm.
skipping those test cases.
Okay. Uh, okay. Okay. Got it. So, how to handle asynchronous operations in Spring Boot application?
Asynchronous operations.
Yes. Do we
Uh,
have any annotation? Uh, uh, I mean, can we use any annotation to do some asynchronous operations in Spring Boot application?
yes, there are some annotations, but I'm not
Like,
very
okay.
familiar.
So,
Not
have you heard about async annotation?
Yeah, async annotation is there, but I'm not remembering how it can be used, uh, because I
Okay.
haven't experimented on that word. But yeah, annotations are there. I'm familiar. Async is also there.
Okay. Okay. No worries. So, how do you handle session management? Do you know about session management?
Session management.
Yeah.
No, actually, I'm not aware.
Okay.
Session management. Could you please brief what exactly you're saying with the
Uh,
help of session?
Means there is a term Spring Session. Like Spring Cloud, we have a term
Mm-hmm.
similar. We have a Spring Session, uh, which
Mm,
provides APIs to manage session attributes across distributed environments.
okay, actually, I'm not very clear with
Okay,
this.
okay, no worries. What's the deployment mechanism in your project?
Yeah, for deployment purpose, we basically
Okay,
as
one second. Tell me what, according to you, what would be the best deployment strategy?
best deployment strategy, right?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, if we once the testing has been performed properly from dev end as well as from the UAT side,
Yes, yes.
from the testing side, so we basically deploys it for our CI/CD purpose. We basically in our project we are using Team City and Urban Code Deploy, where
Okay.
in Team City we basically creates the build our of our service. Once the build
Mm-hmm.
is created, we basically
Mm-hmm.
check the build logs, whether it is good, it is
Okay.
success, or is there
Okay.
any kind of vulnerability in it. If any kind of vulnerability, we go on removing those, and once the build is properly there, it's
Mm-hmm.
success, and we basically deploy those build with the help of urban code deploy.
Okay.
Urban code deploy, we have
Okay.
basically configured their components. We have basically configured components there
Mm-hmm.
as well as the environment.
Mm-hmm.
So we take those bean and deploy it on the urban code deploy. This is the process which we are
This is
following in.
what you are using.
Yeah, we are
Okay.
following there. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Moving ahead. Uh, Uh, do we have any Java's mechanism for handling immutable objects?
uh, Immutable objects,
Yeah,
Java mechanisms.
yeah. I mean, how can we handle immutable objects, or what are immutable objects?
Immutable objects, let's say, in any object which cannot which is once initialized, we cannot change the state of those object, which are those are called as immutable. Let's say we have a string
Okay.
which is a completely immutable based on the concept it uses, like the string constant pool, the concept which it basically uses.
Okay.
So whenever a string is initialized, it basically whenever the string, let's say a string is initialized with the help of literals, right? so
Mm-hmm.
the so the so the object or the value will be stored in the string constant pool, which is
Okay.
an area inside our heap memory.
Uh-huh.
So let's say we are creating another string with the same value, right? With
Yeah,
the
yeah,
same
yeah.
value, it will basically check whether those values are already present in our string constant pool or not. If it is present, it will not
Mm-hmm.
create another object of those. It will basically point the reference of that new variable to that already existing object in our string constant pool.
Mm-hmm.
It basically reduces the memory consumption or the extra memory which we can uh, which an
Okay,
JVM
okay.
can have, right?
Got it.
So this is the
Okay.
this is the way immutable thing.
Okay. So let's say you need to ensure that certain data within your application remains constant and secure throughout its life cycle. How would you implement immutability for this purpose?
Could you please repeat? I
Okay. Let's
Mhm.
say you need to ensure that certain data within your application remains constant and secure throughout its life cycle. Okay.
Hmm.
How would you implement immutability for this purpose?
uh, let's say we will basically, let's say we have any object of a class, we can make a class as an immutable completely,
Okay.
just to ensure that all the data inside
So
those
how can
class are.
we
Hmm.
make class immutable?
Yeah, we can make the class immutable by, as I mentioned, right? If you see the string class, which is basically an immutable, it basically has the class as a final. We basically don't have any kind of setter in those, we only have getters, right? And
Hmm.
whatever the fields which we have that are private and final, so whenever an object will be created,
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
that cannot be changed, or any other class cannot inherit, as we have used
Mm-hmm.
final with that class, right? and and
Mm-hmm.
and what, let's say we have used another object in our class, so in that case we will be performing deep copy of those object, not
Okay.
going for the shallow of those.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
and copy, a different copy will be there, a different object will be created, not those
Okay.
object. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So moving ahead, do you know about Java generics?
Java generics, no, I'm not very clear with this as well.
Okay. No
Generic
worries.
annotations T we used.
Yeah, yeah. No worries. So how can we override equal method?
Yeah. Yes. So we can basically, as I mentioned, right?
Uh-huh.
In our immutable class, or
Yes,
any,
yes.
let's say we have hash map.
Mm-hmm.
When we want to insert any kind of a value, we basically check whether that values is already present in our list of bucket or not,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in that case, while checking the values, we basically check with the help of hash code. If the hash code of those, if the hash value of or the hash code of those key is same, then we will
Mm-hmm.
allocate that value at the same position, but
Okay.
after that in the same bucket, but after that in the form
Mm-hmm.
of linked list, right?
Okay.
In a form of linked list.
Yes,
At that
yes.
time, when we are trying to compare, when we are trying to compare two already existing key and already existing entry and new
Mm-hmm.
entry, we
Mm-hmm.
basically check both the object with the help of equals.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case we actually want uh, whatever the hash code are same, that they
Mm-hmm.
should have the equals, they should have the same equals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically we have an contract between hash code and equals. There is a
Mm-hmm.
contract exists between hash code, and whenever we are overriding equals as per our requirement, we have to override hash code as well. Let's say
Mm-hmm.
any two objects are having same value, right? They
Mm-hmm.
are showing true when they are when they are compared with the help of equals. Though
Yeah, yeah,
it,
yeah.
so it does mean, it simply means that we have the same hash code for the both of them,
Okay.
if if those are saying
So
as the
which
same.
algorithm Hashmap uses internally? Do you know?
Hashmap uses basically a hashing only. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, okay. Mm. So do you know about Java Reflection API?
Java reflection concept I'm aware.
Mm-hmm.
mm, but reflection APIs, I'm aware of the reflection in Java. So
Okay.
with the help of reflection, what Java provides is we can basically change, or we can basically get the what we can basically change the behavior or modify the behavior of an object or the method with the help of, or the class.
Hmm.
Basically, with the help
You
of
can
reflection,
manipulate
we
classes,
can manipulate. Yeah,
interfaces,
yeah,
constructor,
yeah,
method,
right.
field
With the help of
at
that,
runtime.
yeah, at runtime we can manipulate or modify those behavior of those
Mm-hmm.
existing class.
Okay. Uh, is there any performance or security disadvantages by using
For
this reflection?
for the for the reflection, any security disadvantage?
Mm-hmm.
Mm, with the help of
So basically,
uh,
this can lead to performance overhead because it
mhm.
bypasses Java's usual security checks and
Yeah,
method
right, right.
dispatches,
Mm-hmm.
which are optimized by JVM. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, can you please tell me how does Java support functional programming?
Functional programming.
Yeah, yeah. A functional programming means
Close.
like Java 8 new features like
Okay,
Lambda expression,
okay,
Stream API, and all
okay,
this
okay,
stuff.
okay. Yeah. So as you have mentioned, in the functional programming we have a lambda expressions, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In that lambda expression, we in the lambda expression is an anonymous function,
Uh-huh.
which we don't have any name of that function. We can directly
Okay.
use those function anywhere. And functional interface is also the concept which is there. In the
Mm-hmm.
functional interface, we basically have, in a single interface we basically have only one abstract method. Only
Mm-hmm.
one abstract method can have in the functional interface. Then we have the concept of stream, right? Stream APIs.
Mm-hmm.
So in the stream API, we basically, what I would say, a stream API is basically a sequence of object
Mm-hmm.
which basically responsible for performing an operation,
Mm-hmm.
which basically responsible for performing an intermediate operation to get an output.
Mm-hmm.
It does not stores the operation, but it basically perform, it does not stores the any value, but
Mm-hmm.
it performs those operation on demand and prepares and creates a required result. We have we have initial intermediate
Mm-hmm.
operation as well as the final operations as well.
Okay.
In the intermediate operation, we basically use any kind of filtering, sorting, or any searching algorithm which we can use. And
Okay.
we have method reference as well. We have method reference. In the method reference, we basically when we are trying to call any kind of object, any kind of
Mm-hmm.
method, we use object dot method, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
let's say we are trying to call a method which is in a static class, we use the class name dot that method, right? So
Mm-hmm.
but in case of method reference, we what method reference allows us, like we can directly use the class name
Mm-hmm.
colon colon two times that column. Then after that we can directly use the method name with the help of method
Okay.
reference. we have
Okay.
uh, we have optional as a new feature which has been uh, implemented, which has been new given in introduced is in Java 8, right? Optional
Mm-hmm.
basically allows us to handle null pointer, any kind of null pointer
So
exception,
do
let's
you
I
use
will say.
optional classes in practically?
uh,
I
in
mean,
my
in your
project
code.
I did used somewhere, yeah. And optional is used because we
Okay.
there are some null pointer exceptions which used to cause in our
Mm-hmm.
optimization purpose. We have used those.
Okay.
Yeah. And after that, what I would say, this, and we have another new, that date and time API which has also been introduced. Date time
Mm-hmm.
date that date time APIs has been also there.
Mm.
So these are the things.
Okay, okay. So, what is do you know about Java's thread management?
Mm, I'm little aware of this.
Okay. No worries. Moving ahead. Mm, mm, currently you are working on which Java version?
It's 17.
17.
Yeah.
Okay. So can you tell me some new features that were introduced in Java 17?
The new features, right?
Yes,
We
yes.
have. I'm not very aware of those feature, but yeah, there are some sealed classes which is there, which has been introduced currently, and vector APIs.
Okay.
These are the some uh,
Okay.
context, right?
Okay. So do you know about volatile keyword?
You mean versatile,
No,
uh,
no, volatile.
volatile
Yeah.
keyword. Okay.
Yeah.
So in case of volatile, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the values of those variables will be directly changed from the main memory. So
Okay.
whatever the values will be there, it will be stored directly in the main memory instead of storing those value first into the cache, then into the main memory. It
Mm-hmm.
basically changes directly communicates with the main memory, stores and
Okay.
retrieves the values from there. Let's say when two threads are trying to fetch the values, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we are not using volatile, some updated values will not be there in our main memory because updated values first get stored into cache,
Mm-hmm.
then it get stored into the main memory. So another thread,
Okay.
let's try to retrieve, they will have the different values for the same variable or the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to avoid this situation, we use volatile. We can have
Okay.
the memory directly values directly stored in a main memory.
Okay. So do you know about dynamic method dispatch
Dynamic method dispatch.
in Java?
No, no, I am not
Okay.
aware. Can you brief what exactly you were saying?
Okay. So basically, it's a way Java decides which method to use at runtime when methods are overridden in subclasses.
Hmm, hmm,
Uh,
hmm, hmm. Hmm, hmm,
it's a way
right, right,
only.
right.
Yeah.
I am aware how it can be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving ahead. Can you provide examples where abstraction is effectively used in Java libraries?
In Java library.
In Java libraries, I mean, any example where we can see some abstraction?
In Java libraries,
Yeah.
we have Java libraries. Abstractions are. I know what says abstraction, and I'm not remembering exactly in
So
which.
abstraction means we just
Yeah, I
hide
have.
the
We basically hide
implementation
the.
detail.
Yeah.
Uh,
We basically hide the implementation, only show the required details to the
yeah.
user,
Okay.
right?
So
In the
is there
abstraction, right?
any example in Java libraries? Uh, okay. So when we use list, we don't know how it stores data. Okay.
Right,
But
right, right. Exactly.
we just use this, so we can say it's an
Mhm.
example of
Okay.
abstraction.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. uh okay. mm, can you provide examples of when to use interface versus when to extend a class
When to use interface?
versus
Okay.
when to extend a class?
When to extend the class? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, when we have we have a solid principle we basically use when we are trying to have,
Mm-hmm.
right. We basically uses a solid principle to any while developing our application. So
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the part of the solid principle where interface segregation principle,
Mm-hmm.
it is there. There is also open and closed principle is also there,
Mm-hmm.
and is there is one principle also, that dependency inversion principle. And
Yes,
the
yes, correct.
first one is our single responsibility. So in our what I would say, interface segregation, right? Interface
Mm-hmm.
segregation, we basically does not uh, force any client to use those interface if they are if they are not using all the methods of that interface. if they are not using all the methods of interface, right? We don't
Mm-hmm.
basically force in those case. We can have then we can create the interface with an abstract method, with a
Mm-hmm.
with only abstracted method which is common to all, which is very
Okay.
common to all the classes. We can have
Okay.
those, and so that we are basically segregating the interface,
Mm-hmm.
instead of creating a one interface and only one interface and keeping all the methods used, all the methods in those interface which are used or somewhere not used by those extended class,
Mm-hmm.
right? So instead of using single interface, we can create one different two interfaces, right? two
Mm-hmm.
two two or more interfaces, so that
Mm-hmm.
only dependent classes, the mandatory interface methods will be in one interface,
Mm-hmm.
and non-mandatory will be in another one. So we can extend those method with the help of that specific interface.
Mm-hmm.
Basically in interface we basically implement, not extend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, how encapsulation enhances security, software security and integrity?
Yeah. So basically encapsulation, right?
Uh-huh.
Encapsulation is basically a binding of data
Uh-huh.
members and methods together.
Okay.
So in this binding, we let's say we have a class, right? We basically creates all the variables of our class as a private. We
Mm-hmm.
always keep those as a private. So with
Mm-hmm.
the help by doing this, we basically restricts
Mm-hmm.
any direct access to those variables,
Mm-hmm.
right? But we but those variables can be accessed with the help of public getter and setters. We can change the
Okay.
value with we basically provide public getter and setter,
Mm-hmm.
just to make sure that values are not directly changed, but let's say they have the our object, and with the help of
Mm-hmm.
object they can access to our methods, and
Mm-hmm.
they can perform the restrictives, or they can perform only define
Mm-hmm.
functionalities based on those. So it
Okay.
basically ensures that uh, any anyone cannot directly use our data members or the important or the private
Mm-hmm.
members, right? Or the secure data directly.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, it's done from my end.